My name is Emot. I'm the owner of Emottoons Animation Studio. Currently, we're a small team. We specialize in 2D flash animation, or it's an old term that I use, but the software is now Adobe Animate. And currently, we're a team of, I think we're a team of 30, including myself. Three non-artists. So that's for our admin. We run two shifts, morning and evening shifts, because our capacity here is only for the artist only, not including the admin. We have 17 units for that, and then so since we're uh, bigger than 17, so I tried to have a double shift.
What is the animation industry like in the Philippines? Like if you can tell us a little about the broader industry, not just your company.
Okay. Actually, when you talked about animation, you talked about Manila. So usually when you talked about animation, Manila is already there. I mean, even the big, um, we are very known for as an outsourcing animation country, right? In terms of Cebu, there's only a few opportunities in Cebu. In fact, we have a group called Cebu Animation Guild, which I lead way back around 6 years ago. And I'm no longer the president, but way back then I started the group simply because we wanted to build the animation industry in Cebu. And that time there's not a lot of um, opportunities back then. Um, Also, there's one of the reasons why I decided to start my own studio around 11 years ago, simply because there's no job available for animator. So um, basically, in terms of Cebu, right now, there's quite a few animation studios. There are Fizzbuzz, Honey Animation Studio, just to name a few ripe concepts. I think there is, I'm not sure if FMA still exists, this is a 3D, but also a few already starting to pop out, a few small studios. But the one I mentioned are those really established animation studios in Cebu. But way back 10 years ago, when I started, there's actually no animation studio. That's why I started my own. And it started because of my students. Actually, I don't even have plans because I'm not a businessman. I don't have plans to start a studio, but out of um, kind gesture, I was doing freelancing that time, and my students were asking me if they can do OGT, and I said I don't have a studio, but I'm doing freelance during that time. And 10 years ago, um, it freelancing is very new, so that's where I started. From three of my students helping me out. My client was surprised to that I was able to have a faster turnaround. So I told him I got help from my students. So he told me, so you have a team? Because no, sir, it's just my students are helping me out. So, but he insisted, but still you have a team. So that's the first time I I noticed that he's actually right. I have a team, and they were asking me, what's the name of your team or studio? I said, and I cannot think of anything that time. And actually, it was just a joke. I said, my name is Emot, and I'm doing cartoons. So our team is called Emottoons. But it stick until now, and so I decided not to change it. But actually, it was just a joke. So from a team of 3, then 5, 10, and right now we're a team of 30. So currently, in terms of Cebu, Cebu is already beginning to get noticed for animation, because currently Manila is having shortage of artist animators. maybe it's because it's just my opinion. Maybe it's because of the freelancing space is getting stronger. Most of the artists don't no longer work for companies, but decided to, you know, take freelancing and do it their own. So one of the studios, most of the studios in Manila, is actually looking at Cebu, because Cebu is actually a very good location in terms of the geographic location, wherein Cebu is in the middle, um, and the neighboring provinces is very much accessible, even an hour away, or a fast craft, maybe 2 to 3 hours. So there's Leyte, there is Negros, there's Bohol. So it's actually a very good location to pull in more talents, rather than just having it in Cebu. So actually, Cebu is actually a very, for me, Cebu is a very good location for, and it's less traffic. Although there is traffic, but not as big as Manila. There are just certain parts of Cebu that is having a very traffic jam. So currently, in terms of the industry, I think right now, with the presence and the strong support of Cebu Chamber of Commerce, because I'm part of that, and especially to DTI, um, um, I think Cebu is gaining more traction and getting um, notice as a potential animation hub in the Philippines. And I won't be surprised if the next 3 to 5 years there would be studios from Manila are starting up to put it here in Cebu, because they are already coming to Cebu and already looking at Cebu as a potential animation hub next to Manila.
My question is, so you started it 10 years ago, and then can you tell us about the differences from 10 years ago to now, between those 10 years? Like, what was the change in terms of technology, and what do you think are the future things that will impact the growth of the scene in the Philippines?
Just to be specific, I started in 2010, so most likely 11 to 12 years. But during that time, computer is very expensive. Um, Aside from that, there's no monitor tablets available. So aside from expensive computers, there's not a lot of monitor tablets. One of the challenging we had is that there's no schools available in Cebu. So actually, I just learned it on my own. But I got a training from a previous company, but that was really basic. So we without any guidance, my studio was able to. Although I struggled a lot, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I struggled, because with lack guidance and no training, so definitely we encounter a lot of problems. But through the 10 years that and we're very consistent, and we never stop. Maybe that's the reason why we're able to find a way, and eventually YouTube came in, so there's a lot of help already. But before, the difference one I see is that during that time there's no animation studio that I can work for. So that's one. When you say animation studio, there are studios that are looking for illustrators, but not animation studios. So that was a challenge back then. Second challenge was access of technology such as Facebook and YouTube, where you can, find to knowledge to improve your skills, which is not available back then. What else? Even the support of the government, it's really not existing during the time. It's like we're really on our own. That's why a lot of people were surprised I was able to pull it off, because it's actually impossible, right? So, but right now DTI is even focused on on the creative sector. So we just went to Japan this year, I think two months ago. That's one of the project of DTI. So they bring us there to have a B2B meetup. Hopefully, I can find projects in the future. But that's one of the things that is quite different from now, and right now there is support from the government. Before it's wala talaga.
It's like, what is your market? Is it a local market? Who are you creating? Like, what the animators in this country? Who are you creating content for? Who are your clients? Are they foreign, local? Could you tell us a little bit about them?
When we started doing children's book illustrations. Basically, we don't do animations during that time. It's more on children's book until eventually 3 years after. It's all foreign clients. After that, we were able to get small animations project for children's. We have partner with the school in the US, so they were able to ask us something of that. But during that time, it's really more on freelancing on my part because I registered the studio way back 2000, I think 15 or 14, something like that. And until eventually we were doing marketing videos for we had a client in US and UK who is more of like an agency that dumps in a lot of marketing videos for us. And currently most of the works we've been doing right now that requires a lot of manpower is um, YouTubers. There's a lot of YouTubers who demand animations. One good thing it's cheaper, but it's the demand is quite high, and it's also easier to faster turnaround. So although the pay is not that good, but at least it's consistent. Other projects we had, we do short animations, mostly trailers for a possible possible film, featured film, or some are documentaries, animation shorts for documentaries. So we haven't done really big scale projects very similar to Manila, wherein they were able to tap in Disney, because that is something I haven't done. Most of the projects that came to us just go within our website. Um, to some clients, when they search Philippines and when they search Manila, sometimes they go outside Manila when they search Cebu. Since I don't have much competitor, so our studio always goes on top. So that's mostly where I get clients or clientels. And then currently, DTI bring us to Japan. It was actually my very first trip, where, and also that's our very first, to connect Cebu, connecting to the international pipeline, because that I think that's something that Cebu lacks in terms of support. Unlike Manila is enjoying all the privileges, maybe because they're doing it way ahead of us. But I think for Cebu to grow, I think we need to connect to the international pipeline, like North America, even in the UK. And we just started it with Japan, and hopefully there will be more. So in short, we're just starting in this industry.
You mentioned earlier that there were a lot of freelancers working on animation at the moment. And then you also mentioned now that you had a lot of YouTubers as your clients. So I think that the freelance market, things like Upwork, Fiverr, all of those different sites, do you think they're contributing to the growth of the industry? Or do you think that it makes it seem like the Philippines is cheap labor? Like, how do you think it impacts that kind of technology growth of freelance websites and the participation of freelancers? How does that impact our local animation industry?
Um, I think that depends on the location, right? Let's say, for example, Manila. I think Manila people see freelancers as a challenge, right? And because they're not paying taxes and all. But here in Cebu, I think for me, in my opinion, it's a different thing. Um, there's no studios to work in, and they were left with no option but to go freelancing. So in terms of eh, the impact of the industry, I think it would be better if there would be studios that would invest or put up here in Cebu because one, working on projects for freelancing is different from having a big studios because most of the projects they have are very small projects. In terms of learning curves, you can only learn minimum uh, because you can always learn and improve in YouTube, but doing something every day that always challenge you is different, and that is something where you can find on big studios because they're the ones who are bringing in Disney, Nickelodeon, and all. So I think in terms of growth of an artist, most of the famous artists works for big studios. I don't hear a lot of famous artists that are focused only in freelancing. Of course, they were into it freelancing because they were working for big studios before they started their own um, doing it their own. But they were able to build the name already. But doing it in freelancing straight, I see a less success for artists because one, the you cannot gain more experience rather than working in big studios. So for me, in terms of in Cebu, since there's no other options, most of the artists right now are left with no option but to go freelancing. But I think it will also be best for the industry if um, free if it's not most of the artists are working for the studios.
Okay. How about the impact of COVID-19? Did that impact the way your studio was run? The growth of the studio, the adjustment, was it very big? How did that impact the Filipino animation scene?
I'll be honest with you, and I want to humble our studio. Actually, we haven't made money the first 5 years. I mean negative, not not just break even, negative really. I have to fill in money so that we can survive. And then 6 and 7 years, it's actually break even. Even the 8th year, it's already break even. The studio was actually just making money 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, we were just like, how many are we? 15, I think. And 3 years now, we doubled already the manpower. So um, I think the luckiest break we had was last year when the pandemic hits. There's a shortage of not shortage, but there are a lot of demands of animation, mainly because the the live shoot were not available because of the COVID restrictions. So most of them preferred animation as a different like for example music video. Instead of shooting it live, they decided to create an animation for that. Other companies for their marketing videos, instead of having it shoot it live, they prefer animation just to make sure they continue with their branding and the marketing. So there's actually a spike of demand in animation, and last year was one of the best years we had in the studio, and I was able to upgrade everything from our monitor tablets and also. In short, uh, the past 2 years was been a blessing for us. I think one of the things I noticed, especially in Manila, um, maybe I might not be the right person to to ask about this because I'm limited in Cebu, but I've been in Manila a few times. I was able to visit also studios there and able to meet some of the animation owners. I think for me personally, and it's just my personal opinion, I think one of the things that needs is the unity of all the stakeholders or the enterprise, because currently it's although there is ACP, Animation Council of the Philippines, I think I think right now ACP is already starting to connect to the provinces because they are really limited within their area already in Manila. And the first time I heard about them, I said they represent Philippines, but they're only operating in Manila. But currently, just lately, for the past I think 2 to 3 years, Cebu has been aggressively inviting Animation Council of the Philippines. That's why they were able to visit here, and at least we were able to felt their presence. So, and most of the studios in Manila are having a very tough competition. Anyway, I think it's having a very small studio such as mine. I cannot really feel the competition that much from what they had, diba? So um, I think one more of like a unity within the stakeholders of the Philippines, and maybe create a very solid group that represents the entire Philippines so that other provinces could be given also opportunities for growth, not just Manila. Because one of the things I noticed is that most of the artists in Manila are not actually from Manila. They're from Bohol, they're from Mindanao, mostly Mindanao, from Cebu to Negros. So it's actually scattered every part of the Philippines. So I think that also speaks about um, the rich talent of creative individuals in the Philippines. If we can also maximize that, if the government can create support wherein um, strengthen also, because doing animation, all you need to have is just a very strong internet, and I think you can put up a studio in easily in Mindanao and Negros, you know because right now most of the especially in the province are more on agriculture, but actually in digital space it can be done. So for me, if you really wanted, growth, and because if we can maximize that, Philippines can be like one of the maximize the outsourcing potential of Philippines. Um, Also, one of the things is the locations and all, but I think Cebu has been doing good as long as there's strong internet connection, and the talent is everywhere. I think uh, it's just my opinion anyway. I hope it matters, but for me, that would be a very good thing. But in terms of Manila, I don't have much knowledge about them, so my perceptions and ideas are very limited. And of course, I don't want to talk about something that I didn't know.
About what sets the Filipino animator apart versus the foreign animation scene? What makes us different?
Definitely, Filipino sets apart actually. Mostly focused more on attitude. I think that's mainly one of the reasons why most of the clients preferred Philippines for an outsourcing partners or a country to look at because of the attitude that we had. Aside from rich talent we had, I mean, other countries have that as well. Main reason would be be communication barrier, but mostly it's the attitude. Filipinos are very easy to work with. One, also hardworking. Even not just the animation industry. You can look at nursing. What else? I mean, even the OFW for the domestic helpers, because we have the right attitude. We're very hardworking, and sometimes we don't complain much. We just work and work. So I think Filipinos has the right attitude. That's why most of foreign countries preferred Philippines.
Agency and what is the ideal, etc.
I'll talk with Cebu first. I'm really seeing a lot of bright future for Cebu. One, Manila is already considering Cebu as a very serious location to expand. Also, government, especially DTI, has been very aggressive in is very focused on, especially I have to mention drop a name here, sila Ma'am Hope, especially Ma'am Nanette. Grabe, they're the ones who approach us. It's not all the time that the government approaches to the group. Usually we're the one asking support from them, but it's actually the other way around. They see a lot of potential for the digital space in Cebu, and they're the ones really working so hard to maximize and help grow the industry. So I really see a lot of growth in the next 5 years in Cebu, and we're hoping that also other provinces can take follow, because those are things that can be available under provinces. Not because sometimes we're very limited, right? But digital space. I mean, digital creatives are, all you need to have is creative people and internet, and I think that is something can be available in different parts of the country.